Hello, this is Josiah Vincent, and I'm doing my journal number 2 for Transformational Leadership. Hello, Linda. How are you? Um, today. I'm going to talk about cultural differences in management, and I've been thinking a lot about this because of my relationships that I've made with the international students at our school, as well as my endeavors in prospecting for an international business. And it's very interesting to have read the articles that you gave us, management thinking from the wisdom management literature of India, and Guanxi, an important Chinese business element. So these are a couple short articles about more like the bigger picture, what's going on in cultures outside the U.S. and outside of Australia. Even between U.S. and Australia, we have some cultural differences. So it's very interesting to find out about those while here in Australia. For instance, one Australian thing I've noticed is that there's a bit of an appreciation for not being too serious in the workplace and being able to have that kind of friendship bond. And it seems to me that a lot of people are just kind of carry themselves a little differently than I've seen in the U.S. But otherwise, there's a lot of similarities between U.S., UK, and Australian ways of doing business. Canada is also very similar. So the idea of going into a place like China for business and knowing the extent to which Guanxi requires in order to have a successful business is it's definitely. I love how in the article it says it can make or break you, and you can wind up spending twice as much as you were intending, simply because you have to fulfill all these favors to build this connection. And if it doesn't wind up going so well, then you made an investment, and you could lose out on it. It's like investing in relationships, financially investing in relationships, and that's that's a pretty different take on it from in the U.S. where we make a division. You know, you get your personal and your business, and you can divide that, and you can work with both of them, and sometimes you can interlock them. People feel a grand sense of appreciation for being in your life, but as a friend rather than as a business partner. And combining those gets to be a little sticky, and seeing how it's so fluid in Chinese culture is, well, for me, I really appreciate the idea of it. So I would really love to do business in China, just to understand this and really feel what it's like to be welcomed into a business partner's home for the first time, like right after meeting them, and just like being welcomed there, and the exchange of gifts and things like this. So yeah, I definitely think it's definitely a different take on it than in the U.S. And I think that in some ways it could be really beneficial for people who are more geared towards transformational kind of thing, more charismatic, more intellectually stimulating, have personalities to talk about and develop with their friends, and those friends can then be their business partners. And who do you trust more than your friends? I mean, you spend a lot of time with them, so having them also be your business partners. My roommate says that the Chinese culture is very connection dependent. So there's not a lot of independence, and people really rely on each other to get the things they need and to coordinate and work together. And when he was talking about that, I was thinking of my culture in the U.S. And I actually my parents come from a poor background, so I've noticed that we also really rely on our social connections in order just to get things done. For instance, when we don't have a washing machine because it breaks down, we can't. If the bills are tight, we can't afford the $50 or the $100 for someone to come out and fix it or buy a new one. We call all of our friends and we say, "Hey, things are a little tight. Don't you remember fixing that one washer you did that one time? And I know you're pretty good with that stuff. Would you mind checking ours out? And then maybe we can exchange, give you, or, we can feed you have you over for dinner." So it's kind of the idea is to have that, it's a social exchange. We hang out and we each are able to benefit. And I found that in the U.S. there's just no other places that even have an inkling of that kind of a thing, and a lot of people of the lower class have to rely on that. Um, if their car breaks down, they don't have the money to go get it fixed and then still be able to make it to work. And if they don't make it to work for a couple of days, they lose their job, and then they wind up losing their apartment, and then everything crumbles again, and that happens to a lot of people who are on that streak in the U.S. On the lower end, and it's really hard to get up. It's really hard to get to that next step and be able to make the larger investments that you need in order to have a stable lifestyle. And that instability is driven with consumerism. It's driven with doubt and fear and anger and just terrible emotions engaged. A lot of people cheating with each other and backstabbing, and it's this vicious cycle that the lower class are stuck in. And if they don't connect and communicate, they would just wind up never being even capable of doing their daily tasks. That's what I'm trying to say. So there's a little bit of the Guanxi there. What is separate from the Chinese way and then that way is something that goes in with Guanxi, which I've been reading about. It's called Huanzi, and Huanzi is like a it's like face. It actually, I mean, it literally means face, and that means like their demeanor and how people see them, how they are respected, and that's something that the lower class in America doesn't have. So with the Huanzi, they have to. I mean, people are expected to keep a certain way and be a certain way so that they can fit in society, and then they're accepted, and then they can move forward together. And if they don't act in those certain ways, it looks bad for their face. Like their face value is decreased. And if people, make fun of them, it's kind of like, it's almost like in a way losing your honor, similar to how Japan sees it, but not exactly. So it can be very detrimental to lose face. But a lot of people work on getting it back, and they know that if they make the right decisions, they can keep face. And even if someone tries to embarrass them or disgrace them, they can do the better thing, and they can save face. So Huanzi is another aspect that I really have appreciated learning. And now I'm going to move on to India with the Indian readings. In the Indian readings, I think it's really interesting how their integration of spirituality goes right into management and business. Now, the distinction on values is just way more powerful for them, for the writer, and his experience than for American companies. I feel every company has their set of values, their core values. They have their mission, and they have a few other things that go into the creation of their organization, and they focus on those core values and those values. But they're not all the same. Like everybody in the company likes to agree on those values, but they're not the same from what everybody believes. And everybody who goes in the company has a different set of values, and they have a different way of doing things. And it's that lack of homogeneity which makes American companies so dynamic. At the same time, we get a lot of detriment. We don't get a lot of I think we get a lot of creativity, but I don't think we get necessarily a lot of innovation. So striking the difference there about the U.S. companies and comparing that to Indian companies, where there is that homogeneity in values, and if they can access their values, if they can share their spirituality or their materialist value sets, which is an interesting separation that Dada made in the article. So what I'm trying to say is that I think that it's a different playing field in the U.S. than in India for a few reasons, and values are definitely integral. In the U.S., it's kind of like we pick up the values of the company, and our own values can be whatever we want. And as a manager, you can't assume what someone else's values are. You can't. I mean, you can learn about their values, and then you can relate. But then it becomes a transactional thing, and it's not a transformational thing where you're sharing these valuable experiences, and you're sharing this kind of spirituality in your management practice. And I think there's a lot more to read on the India topic, and I think there's a lot more for me to learn, and it's very interesting to me. So hopefully in the next few weeks I'll be able to get a chance to do some of that and maybe read up on some of the successful companies, hopefully ones that have used some of this kind of cultural values assessment, this wisdom management, which that's the first time I've ever heard of wisdom management. Very enlightening, very interesting to hear about how that relates to the history of India and how people are in their mindsets towards the wisdom of India. So definitely want to learn a lot more about it. And I think that's everything I want to talk about today for this journal update. I think my next update is going to be on Steve Jobs. As you know, he has passed away, and there's quite a bit of literature on him and how he was as a transformational leader. So I've been reading that, and I think that I will be prepared next week to prepare to do a journal on that. Thank you, Linda, and have a good day.